Hello everyone, welcome back to Instant Release. Today we're going to talk about the Lumix LX5, which has been my everyday carry camera for the last 7 months or so. I have some thoughts, so let's jump right into it. I want this to be a kind of short video. So, let's start with the specs and when was this camera released and stuff like that. This is a camera that was released in 2010. It's a compact premium camera that has a 1/1.63-inch sensor, so it's a very small sensor camera. It has a 24 to 90mm lens, which is an f2 to 3.3, if I'm correct. Yes, I am. It's, in the LX line, so it's the successor to the LX3. The LX7 was the successor to the LX5. It's pretty standard stuff. The particularity of the LX5 to me is that this is one of the most affordable cameras that I would actually buy or recommend. So, let's get into what are the problems of the LX5, what are the good points of the LX5, and should you buy one? So let's start with the problems, because I feel like the problems are generally the things that are going to be the most problematic to a buying decision. Like, if the good points are like absolutely insane, but there's one bad point that is a deal breaker, you won't buy the camera. End of story. So, the LX5, what are the main problems with that camera? And to me, there is two. The first one is the autofocus, which is going to be, very late 2000s, meaning that the AFS works okay, AFC, just forget about it. Face detection, it has it. Is it working? Not really. It's the kind of things like, okay, the only way to have pretty accurate focusing with the LX5 is to have a center focus point using AFS only and doing like focus and recompose if you want to change your composition. That's the only way that this camera is working. It's not a bad thing per se, but it's not exactly refined or anything like that. In the same vein of the camera not being able to capture something that moves, the video is not even worth speaking about, because it's like 720p 30 at the maximum, like the highest quality video it can record. So it's not really something that is usable today. I feel like anything that is not able to record 1080p video today is like dead in water when it comes to even like personal videos or videos that you would share on social media and stuff like that. Everything is 1080p now. So I would understand the lack of 4K video, that would not be a problem, but the lack of 1080p is actually problematic for this kind of camera body. So, video, forget about it, not really worth mentioning. And the second problem I have with the LX5 is the straight up image quality. Like, as I said, it has a very small sensor. If I compare that to my phone, which is an Asus Zenfone 10, my phone has a larger sensor than this camera. And this is not like a super high-end fancy camera with a super large sensor or anything like that. It still has a larger sensor than the LX5. And matter of fact, my phone and the LX5 are pretty similar when it comes to specs and when it comes to what they can do when you're shooting in RAW. My phone has a 24mm equivalent lens. The LX5 has a 24mm equivalent lens when it's at its widest, and they both have pretty much the same aperture. So the phone is about f1.9 and the camera is f2, so very similar there. The pixel count is also very similar. The LX5 has a 10 megapixel CCD sensor when my phone is a 12.5 megapixel. Actually, it's a 50 megapixel, but it has a 2x2 pixel binning, so it's a 12.5 megapixel CMOS. And when I compared the images from my phone and my LX5, the LX5 was basically matching the phone, which is not that bad, but we're talking about the raw files here. We're not talking about the processed images that the phone is going to put out. And when it comes to JPEGs, the phone is substantially better than the LX5 because it has all the image stacking features that modern phones have. So it's really not a contest when it comes to image quality. The phone is going to win if you shoot JPEGs, and if you shoot RAW, it's going to be a match, and you generally want a dedicated camera to have better image quality than the phone. I mean, that's my view on it. So if those 2 points are problematic to you, the fact that you're not going to able to capture things in motion, the fact that you're not going to be able to have better image quality than what your phone has when it comes to low light and stuff like that. If those 2 points are problematic to you, there's not even a point in getting I was about to say the Z5, the LX5. Sorry. So there is no point in getting the LX5 if you have a problem with this. Now, let's talk about the minor niggles that I have with the camera, and I mean there are a few. Of course, there are always a few. The first one to me is that we're going to talk about the EVF, also in the positives, but it has like a negative part of things. The EVF is straight up the worst EVF I've ever used. So yes, sure, you have an EVF that you can use, but it's really not a good one. And the second thing is that you have a pop-up flash, like that, but you can't like bounce it off or something like that. This is a little bit annoying. The sun is coming in through my window right now, so I'm gonna shut it off. So, back without the sun in our face. I really choose my time to record that video. Anyway, the other little niggles I have is that sometimes the controls are a little bit fiddly. Like the rear dial is a little bit hard to turn sometimes, and it's the only dial that you have. You have a single dial on this camera, and the menu system is not super intuitive, and it's very dated when it comes to how it looks. So those are like basically the only problems I have with the camera, besides the two main ones that I discussed. And so now I think we're okay to go on the good points of the LX5. So the first one is pretty obvious, I would say, but that's the size. This is a very small camera. It's basically the size of a Ricoh GR3, except it's a little bit thicker. But when it comes to height and width, it's basically the same thing as a GR3. So it's very much compact, pocket-sized camera. It's not really something that you would fit in a jeans pocket, but like in a cargo pants pocket or a jacket pocket, no problem. It's also a camera that is very easy to pack if you have a little bag with you and you don't have a camera bag at all. You can just throw that in and it will be barely any larger than the phone, which is pretty cool. Or it's like the size of a wallet, I guess. But the fact that it's able to be small and have a lens that is pretty versatile, we're going to talk about the lens in a minute, it's pretty cool in my opinion, and I really like this aspect of the LX5. Then coming on the lens is very good. I've used the LX100 before the LX5, and the LX100, everybody is saying like, wow, that lens is amazing. I really didn't find it amazing. It's pretty soft wide open at its widest setting, and it flares extremely easily. And I had like low expectations when I come in about the LX5. When I first got it in my hands, I was pretty sure that I would not like the lens, and in fact the lens is extremely good. Like it does not extend too much from the body, unlike the LX100, but also it's extremely good optically, meaning that we still retain the very good macro capabilities of the LX100, meaning that at the widest setting we can make the focus on something that is like 3 centimeters from the lens, so basically almost touching the front element of the lens and still able to focus on it. That's very good. But you also don't have all the things that we generally associate with close focusing distance, which is like a lot of chromatic aberrations, loss of sharpness and stuff like that. There's nothing of the sort on that lens, and it's pretty much sharp at every focal length and sharp at every aperture. Stay conservative on the tight apertures though. Like if you get past f8 with that small of a sensor, that's going to be a bit problematic, of course. But it's basically a lens that I could use at every setting and not really lose any image quality, which is pretty cool. Also, it's decently wide aperture. I mean, f2 to f3.3 is okay. It's supposed to be an updated design of the LX3's lens, which was in 24 to 60, which has f2 to 2.8. Because at 60mm equivalent, this lens is also f2.8, so you don't really lose anything compared to the LX3 there, which is pretty cool. Yeah, it's stabilized, it's not too big, it's not too noisy, it has a leaf shutter. It's a very good lens overall, and that's really the standout on the LX5 to me is that this lens is able to do pretty much everything. It's very sharp, wide open at 24mm equivalent, which means that landscapes are not going to be a problem. It's very sharp at 90mm, so if you want to take some portraits, it's very good at that. The range is great, the focusing is pretty quick, kind of, in AFS. Overall, it's a very good lens, and this is the biggest positive I have. And the second one is the ergonomics and the build quality. Everything feels quality on that camera, and it handles quite well. It has nice little thumb rests right under the dial. It has like a nice little grip in the front where you can wrap your fingers around, which is pretty cool, because it's it works quite well, I think. Some other cameras, like the later LX10 and LX15, they just have a like aluminum slab and don't really have much hole to put your fingers in. Here at least you have a little bit of rubberized grip. It's pretty nice to have that. Yeah, if you want to have a viewfinder, you can put a viewfinder on there. It's, as I said, it's basically the worst viewfinder I've ever used, and it also adds to the bulk quite a bit. Like as you can see, it's not the smallest camera in the world anymore, but you know, all of this to say that if you want to have a viewfinder, you can have one. If you want to have a flash, you have a flash. If it's a full-featured camera, and that's pretty nice to have. And when it comes to the build quality itself, well, it's all metal, and the only parts that are not metal are the parts that are supposed to move. So the lens barrel here that extends is plastic, the dials and buttons are plastic, of course, this little door inside is plastic, and the battery / SD card door is plastic as well. Everything else is metal. The color here around the lens is metal, the front is metal, the back is metal, the bottom is metal, the top is metal, everything is metal, and it's built like a tank. I'm pretty sure you can drop this thing and it would not really have any impact on its ability to function. So it's pretty good, pretty good camera, pretty good lens, pretty good build quality. It's overall just a nice object to have if you want to have a camera with you. It's not like a plastic point and shoot that's just gonna break in 2 seconds if you drop it. Anyway, so yeah, build quality is great. And then there is the last great point I think about the LX5, and that's the price, actually. There's not a ton of cameras that are this good when it comes to build quality and features at this low of a price. It's about $100. I bought mine for 109 euros on MPB at the beginning of the year, and I've seen one for $99 2 weeks ago on MPB again. So it's cheap, and it stays consistently cheap, kind of. If you want to search on the local markets, it might be a little bit more than $100, but it's overall pretty nice. Honestly, it's a pretty good deal, I think. Now, of course, it doesn't have the best image quality, it doesn't have the best autofocus and stuff like that, but for the price, I think this can be excusable, especially now that like compact cameras are all the hype again, and you can see like absolutely overpriced eBay listings for older compact digital cameras. This has everything that you want. It has nice enough sensor, basically matching modern smartphone image quality, which is cool. It has a great lens, good build quality, full metal, and it's a CCD sensor. I mean, what more do you want to have like in a small digicam like that? It's honestly great. And I would recommend it if the two major points I mentioned are not a problem to you, then sure, go ahead and grab one. If those are, maybe wait a little bit, increase your budget a little bit. The LX7, that is the successor to this, is going to be about twice the price, generally more than 250-ish range, and this has a 1.4 lens, so it's going to be about a stop faster than this one, but it has the same kind of sensor. It's still the same size, still 10 megapixels, but it's CMOS and it's not CCD, so you might have some benefits in image quality there when it comes to dynamic range and noise. And of course you have one stop better when it comes to light gathering, so of course that's going to be better. And there is also the later models in the LX series, the LX100, much more expensive, much bigger as well. But the LX10 and the LX15 you can sometimes find for around 200 to 250-ish if you search long enough. And those cameras actually have a 1-inch sensor, which is much larger. And you have still like that 1.4 lens, which is a 24 to 72, I think. So not 24 to 90 mm equivalent that you'd find in the LX5 and the LX7, but it's still pretty good. And they are not much bigger, if bigger at all, than the LX5. So honestly, I'm not going to say that the LX5 is the best deal of the century. It's not. But if you can find one for cheap, it's a fun camera to have with you at all times, and it's one of the cameras I'm not shooting a ton with it when it comes to, I'm not getting a ton of keepers, that's what I mean, because I shoot a ton with it. That's my everyday carry camera for sure. I shoot with it, but the thing is that I'm not always getting keepers. I would print with it, but I'm getting nice memories, and that's the main point of those cameras, I think. So, that's about everything I wanted to say about the LX5. I hope this video wasn't too long. If you have any questions or if you have any recommendations about small cameras like this, drop them in the comments below, and I'll do my best to make a review, kind of the other compact fixed lens camera that I talked about in the last video, which is the Fujifilm X100S, which is a camera that I've also been using in tandem with the LX5. Sometimes I take it as my EDC, sometimes I take that one. This is much larger camera and absolutely not the same kind of range, like it's a fixed focal length, wide aperture, APS-C sensor. This is absolutely not the same kind of camera. And this is much different shooting style, and sometimes I wish that I had the LX5 when I have the X100, and sometimes I wish the opposite. Anyway, that's going to be the next review, I think. In the meantime though, thank you so much for watching. I wish you have a great day, and I'll catch you in the next one. See ya.